We will start. On va commencer tout doucement. Hi everybody. I can see many familiar faces, friends, family. I'm so glad you're all here. It's not yet time. We have 1 more minute, so we'll just chat a little bit while all of you are coming online. Today is going to be a fun experiment. I'm not going to spend a long time introducing what the Designers and Artisans Textile Club is all about, because I think all of you are familiar. I think we have any new faces here. Please, if you don't mind, make sure that all of you are muted. And if you have questions, just put them in chat. Another 1 minute. So I'm still kind of waiting for everybody to join. So this is the first time I am trying this experiment where I have somebody joining us from Europe. So Veronique, as you all know, is speaking to us directly from La Rochelle, the west coast of France. And we both decided together that it would be a much more authentic and easy way to proceed if she starts a little bit, her introduction. Veronique will give us an introduction to herself, which is wonderful. So she'll start in English, and then I'm going to be helping her with translation. And if I get terribly stuck, then we also have Dominique, who has volunteered to translate. So it's really like as if we are going all the way to La Rochelle and we are visiting Veronique in her beautiful sunlit studio, as you can see. So let me introduce all of you to Veronique Kadi Lecrosnier. And Veronique, just go ahead and tell us about yourself. All right, go ahead.
Right. Thank you, Kartika. Hi, everybody. So thank you to be here. Today it's very sunny in La Rochelle. And that's the first point. That's very important for color and to speak about the color, because it's been raining every day. So I was just hoping it was going to be sunny. Thank you to Designers and Artisans and to Kartika Odinet for this Zoom event. I am Veronique Kadi Lecrosnier, and I am a textile designer and a colorist. After my studies in France, I spent a year in India. I got a scholarship to study at National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad. And I was the first French student at the time to get this kind of scholarship. And when you are in love with textile, it's really a big chance to study there. Today, I have over 25 years of experience in luxury ready-to-wear. I have been working for brands like Kenzo, Dominique Piquier, Agnes B, and I am principally designer for factories. I started with print in DMC Group, which is a huge factory in France. Then I've been working for Chocolate Jersey at Guigou. Then I've been working weaving at Sfat et Combier, and right now I work for a small embroidery range in the Solstice Group. The name of the factory is Point d'Esprit, and it's quite famous for the laces. I also advise the Federation of French Tanners on Color, the focus of this event. Okay, so let's start now. Yes. First, I just would like to explain you, I am not going to develop color theory during this presentation, but it is very important to have a knowledge about it. The way colors are organized with a chromatic circle or the very beautiful triangle from Goethe is really interesting to know. If you're interested, there are some books you can read, like for example, Joseph Albert Pastoureau, or good, which is more philosophic, quite hard, but why not? Physicists, psychologists, and colorists have a fundamental approach of the color. Today, I'm just going to explain you how the color is a main part of my job and the way I use it like a designer. About this picture, there's a lot of things to say because it looks a little bit funny, but for me, it's like speaking about the chromatic circle in a way, because it speaks here about the three primary colors. We are magenta, cyan blue, and yellow. And what's interesting also, and that's very important for this part of the color I'm used to work like a designer, it's a color bound to the fabric, because you can have beautiful colors on a screen, you can have beautiful colors on a paper, but if you don't have a target, like a specific fabric, like a material like silk or wool or cotton, I mean, the approach is very superficial. So in a way, I found this picture really interesting because it speaks about the color, it speaks about the material, here's a wool, it speaks about the patterns because we have some stripes, and it speaks also about all the organization of colors you can have. For example, if you mix two primary colors, like magenta and blue, you will get this, magenta and blue, yes, you will get this purple. So this becomes a secondary color. If you mix together magenta and yellow, you will have this red color, which is also a secondary color. And if you mix together the blue and here this yellow, you will get this green. And then you have the three secondary colors. And then you can go very far in this approach. Here, what's interesting is also you have the pastels, all these very pale colors. So you can play with the shadow, you can play with harmonies, you can play with clair-obscur, chiaro-oscuro, I think, yes. Yeah. And you can also play with all the amount of colors in the way it can be faded colors, it can be broken colors, and also the accent, which is very, very important, like here, this small accent you have on the head of this funny face, which is just very important when you work colors for patterns and prints. So if you have all this sensibility about colors and all this knowledge, you can go very far and you can renew any kind of work in textile design. All-encompassing color palette. This is a tool for different kind of jobs. This palette has been done for the CTC, which is a main office for the leather in France. So it's more bound to trends, but it's also a tool which can be used for designers, for tanner, means the people working the skin and the leather, and also all kind of factories and garments with leather. And also it can be used for designer and stylists for shoes and for accessories. I think I'm going to explain more in details now in French, because it will be more precise, and Kartika, if you're okay to translate. Thank you. Une approche spontanée est nécessaire pour ce travail au début, mais c'est aussi un travail de construction et un travail d'équipe après.
So it's important to have a spontaneous approach in the beginning, and then it is important to have a team, to work within a team to be able to go forward and to construct a palette, right?
Yes. The good question, the very important questions to ask for this kind of building this color palette and to use it is which kind of market is it for? And which timing in the year is it for? Is it for cruise? Is it for summer? Is it for fall? Is it for winter? Actually, the fashion is going in a very different way and it's moving very quickly. So we have to adapt and to find a new way to communicate about the color and the way to produce some new things about textile and garments. C'est un sujet très délicat aujourd'hui parce que on a beaucoup de tissus sur la planète, on a beaucoup de vêtements sur la planète qui ont été produits, mais le travail d'un designer textile et d'un coloriste, c'est aussi de s'engager et de réfléchir pour des propositions afin de réduire la consommation, la production et de rester malgré tout créatif, rester dans un processus de création qui nous permet quand même de pouvoir faire tourner l'économie différemment, il est vrai. Et c'est vrai qu'en tant que jury à l'ENSI à Paris, je vois beaucoup de jeunes designers qui réfléchissent à la production aujourd'hui des collections textiles et donc forcément à une nouvelle façon de réfléchir la couleur en accord avec des tendances ou en application avec le métier de designer textile.
Okay.
It's a long sentence.
But tell me if I don't leave out anything. So what Veronique is saying is that it's a very delicate or very thought-provoking moment in the history of textile design, where we are at a crossroads where there are youngsters who she sees as a jurist when she goes to the École Nationale Supérieure de Création Industrielle in Paris. So that is a major design school where I too went. And so she goes as the jurist there now. And so she sees that we are at this crossroads where there are youngsters who are coming and talking and thinking about textile design, and on the other hand we are faced with overproduction of textiles, overconsumption. We all know that textiles is the second most polluting industry in the world. And so as a textile designer, we now have the responsibility of not only thinking about the environment and the consequences of overproduction and overconsumption, but also we have the responsibility of continuing the industries that revolve around textile production. So as designers, we have to consider both sides, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you. The second point I would like just to tell you before to develop more slides, which are going to be more in the subject, is just that the color doesn't exist alone. So this is something a lot of writers have spoken before, but I really think it's very, very important. When you wear color first, depends on the color of your skin, the color of your hair, the color of your eyes. There's so many cultures, so many symbols. So that's the first point to know. Then when you put two colors together, there's an interaction which is very, very important. So if you have all this in mind, then you can go further. To build and generate a color palette is a very serious and exigent work. Color palette must be new, must be modern, in the sense new again, and it must be very creative, and it's a precious tool to work with. It means when you have a crisis in a society, it's so easy to wear and to buy black, to wear and to buy blue. We know for the market, for the children market, for example, it was very important to propose all the time red and blue colors. And if you don't have these basic colors, it's really a subject which is very difficult for the people who are receiving this color palette, because they are not agree, they can't work with it because they know after that it's too creative, it's too new. And so we have to find the right balance, between the classics, the basics colors, and all the new colors which are going to give a new identity of the season. So that's a point which is very important, because to renew a color palette, when you like orange or when you like green or when you like blue, it's something really hard. After 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you really have to be very creative to find new ideas. And that's really what I like to do. So after one point, when you have all the intuition and the personal development, you need to work with people and to cross ideas. That's very important to share. It's exactly like cooking in a way, you know. So if you're able to transmit and to share, you can go further in a color range. Okay. It depends also of the era of the time. It means there's really things happening in the society, in the life, which give you new ideas. So you have to be very open-minded all the time, just to be renewed in this kind of approach. Okay. So let's start at the beginning. The way, for example, it's possible to build a color range. Distilling inspiration, ideas and desire, current affairs, exhibitions, travel, harvesting, gathering, iconographies, things. And I would like to say it's part of the life. So any kind of inspiration is very interesting, just to develop ideas and new colors. You need the emotion, you need the intuitive progress démarche. No, it's not correct in French. La démarche intuitive, et après vient la construction.
Démarche, I would say, is a approach. It's an intuitive approach. Right?
Yes. Ici, je vais vous parler de quelques exemples d'inspiration. Par exemple, cet artiste, Jimmy Durham, avec cette œuvre intitulée Sweet, Light and Crude. He's an artist and an activist and a writer. Et j'aime beaucoup en fait cette approche revendicative, économique, voilà, qui est très actuelle encore, même s'il a fait ça en 2010, je crois, ou 2012. Uniquement par les mots et la couleur, on arrive à faire passer beaucoup de messages. Et c'est ça ici que je trouve très beau, premièrement, parce que c'est très inspiring et également très revendicatif. Donc, on peut faire passer beaucoup d'idées dans une approche et une réflexion autour de la couleur.
Okay, so this is one of her first inspirations that she's sharing with us. It's by an artist, writer, right? He's an artist, writer, and
he's a writer and he's an activist.
And an activist, thank you.
Yes.
And so Jimmy Durham made this statement. So she says that it's not only an inspiration when it comes to color, but it's also very rich in meaning, because he's not just choosing colors for the sake of colors, but he's also bringing up important points in terms of activism. So I don't know, Veronique, you did not tell them, but these are cans of petrol that he has been reusing, right? And he has painted it all in these colors.
Yes.
So there's activism behind it. So it's not just one layer of color. It's very rich in and deep in meaning.
Yes. Also, you can read Total.
Oh, yes. And yes, it is from the company Total. Yeah, thank you, Veronique. Yeah. And so Total is an oil company. So oil being a very important aspect in today's world of environmental concerns.
Thank you. L'inspiration peut être à partir de beaucoup d'éléments. Ici, des fruits, des camailleux d'orange, une histoire de couleur un peu surprenante, probablement pour un jeune homme. Donc c'est vrai que des analogies sont possibles entre des éléments de la vie quotidienne qui peuvent être très simples, mais voilà, qui nous rendent sensibles, et après une association ici qui est plus trendy.
So here, this is an analogy of fruits that she's taken. So, something that can be an element of our quotidian life where we see fruits of different color. And on the right, you see a photograph where similar colors, analogous colors are derived from this type of inspiration.
Ici, la campagne de Lipstick Collection, March 2020 from Hermès. Je trouve cette campagne de nouveaux rouges à lèvres très intéressante parce que forcément, ça parle de maquillage, de rouge, mais au-delà du rouge à lèvres, il y a une vraie réflexion sur le packaging et ici, on joue uniquement sur des accords colorés. Donc, de détourner en fait la couleur interne du tube du rouge à lèvres avec des codes couleurs externes me semblait très judicieux et également très ludique.
Okay. So here, this is a marketing campaign by Hermès of lipstick. It's a collection of lipstick that they launched in March 2020. And what Veronique finds really attractive about it is that not only is it talking about makeup, but it's also all about the packaging where they have taken the inside out. So where, inside colors are maybe a red, that they have used that for the outside packaging. And it's what we often say in French, a ludique manner of expressing color. So ludique is a fun way.
Playful.
Playful, yes. Thank you.
Une autre approche très intéressante dans notre époque, alors ici des illustrations de deux couturiers, G.W. Anderson and Prada, une utilisation de la couleur par juste des accents qui permettent de renouveler des vêtements basiques. En allant plus loin que cette image, on peut aussi imaginer qu'une sensibilité couleur permet de renouveler tout l'upcycling et puis les vêtements de seconde main.
Mm-hmm. So here are two examples of the use of accents of color to renew very basic types of clothing, and also how one can get into upcycling clothes with just accents of color.
Yes. Further defining the color palette. So here we're just going to enter in the subject, and I'm going to explain you the way I start building a color palette. So first exercise is really to practice. If you can practice, if you can paint, if you can start with the three primary colors, for example, like we saw at the beginning, magenta and the cyan blue and yellow, and you buy black and white, you just can start to understand while practicing the color. Ici, j'ai eu une commande par Agnès B qui voulait faire un défilé homme avec des glaïeuls et des arômes. Donc, j'étais très étonnée parce que j'avais jamais vraiment travaillé comme ceci les fleurs. Je suis allée au marché, j'ai acheté des fleurs, je les ai mises dans un vase et je les ai peintes. Et là, Agnès B m'a acheté 15 maquettes et elle a fait tout un défilé homme à partir des dessins que j'ai réalisés à la gouache. Malheureusement, à cette époque, je n'ai pas eu le réflexe de garder des images, des photos, parce que je suis d'une génération où Internet n'existait pas. Donc, j'ai beaucoup de réalisations textiles et artistiques qui ont été réalisées dans ce domaine du textile et je n'ai pas forcément de traces et de vêtements à vous montrer. Mais voilà, ce qui était intéressant ici, c'est d'être sincère dans la peinture, d'être vraiment avec une approche colorée assez puissante, et Agnès B les a vraiment retranscrites telles quelles dans un défilé homme.
Okay. All right. So this was a commission by a company called Agnes B. They are high-end clothing, and so they wanted to develop a collection for men. And they asked Veronique to develop a collection based on gladioli, so gladioli flowers, and arum lilies. Since she didn't have these growing in her garden, she went to the market and she bought a whole lot of arum lilies and gladioli, put them in a vase, and started painting. And she painted, several of these flowers. And Agnes B eventually bought some 15 of them. They were all painted in gouache, and developed an entire collection of clothing for men. Veronique says that she comes from a generation where one did not have the internet. I mean, it was not yet there, and it was not so important. And she did not really pay attention to keeping images of all the clothing that was developed with her paintings, nor does she have many traces of them. Luckily, she has this shirt to show and share with us. But to go back to the paintings, what she feels is that it's really important to have an approach which is sincere in the painting, sincere and forceful. So this is very Veronique, and I'm sure that all of you will have questions about this. How do you paint being sincere and forceful? So let's keep that for later, all right? We can ask Veronique.
Okay, okay, Kartika. The next slide. I like this slide very much because it's really, it's very mathematic, but it's very sensitive and very modern. C'est en français les questions qu'on se pose quand on travaille la couleur. A-t-on envie de rouge? A-t-on envie de jaune? Ici, on a, voilà, j'ai trouvé qu'il y avait une proportion de vert extrêmement intéressante. On n'a pas toujours aimé les verts dans l'histoire de la couleur. Voilà, c'est une couleur qui a une symbolique très, très particulière. Donc, je vous invite à lire Michel Pastoureau. Ce que je trouve intéressant ici, c'est qu'on se pose vraiment la question du camailleux. On se pose la question du monochrome avec le gris, voilà, le gris qui est tellement facile à porter au quotidien comme le noir, on ne prend pas de risque. Est-ce qu'on fait un petit... est-ce qu'on se concentre sur des coloris naturels? Aujourd'hui, dans notre époque, c'est vrai qu'il y a des corps de métier où on évite de faire des teintures chimiques. Donc voilà, il y a une réflexion autour des bruns, des naturels. Quelle est la proportion aussi de la couleur qu'on va utiliser dans une gamme? Est-ce que ce sont des accents? Est-ce que ce sont des dominantes? Donc voilà, ici, je pense que ça résume vraiment une intuition première qui est extrêmement intéressante quand on commence une gamme de couleurs. Les premières impulsions fortes.
Okay, so here this picture is all about the questions that one must ask oneself, especially in today's world of industrial and chemical dyeing. So when Veronique starts, she questions things like, do we feel like having red? What are the proportions that we are looking at? And if you look at this image, there's a very large proportion of green. She says that this is very interesting and invites all of you to read an author called Michel Pastoureau. Veronique, would you mind writing his name in the chat? Do you know how to do that? Or maybe
I can try.
I don't know how to spell the Pastoureau. Is it R-U-X?
No, P-A-S.
Yeah.
T-O-U. R-E, yes. T-O-U-R-E-A-U.
Okay. So
yes, I have to, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know how to
no,
use it.
Dominique has written it. Dominique has written. Thank you, Dominique.
Thank you.
So Michel Pastoureau has written about color. So so Veronique is inviting all of you to read about that in his work. She also talks about the gray that you see on the side and how it is so easy to wear gray or black because they are no risk colors. And then comes the question of do we approach colors in the chemically dyed world where brighter colors are used as accents, or do we want them to dominate the palette? Do we have an approach where we adopt more naturally occurring colors, so more like beiges and browns, and then have these brighter accents? So this for her is the first impulsion. Some of these are the first, first impulsion. Impulsion, I think, would be the right translation. Yes.
Yes.
First impressions when going forward with constructing a palette.
Thank you. Donc ici, ce sont les premiers choix. Quand je commence à travailler la couleur, je travaille toujours sur du blanc parce que il faut savoir quand même que 2-3 jours avant, je suis toujours très inquiète. Une grosse anxiété arrive parce qu'il faut se renouveler. La concurrence est rude et il faut être juste. Et de trouver la justesse, c'est un exercice qui est un peu comme un travail de peintre, je pense. Donc, on commence avec une intuition très importante, mais aussi des inspirations. Là, je me suis inspirée d'un catalogue de Carhartt, qui est donc une marque de vêtements de sportswear et de vêtements de travail au départ. Et j'ai beaucoup aimé en fait les pages de ce catalogue, qui est un catalogue qui s'adresse vraiment à des jeunes gens, masculins, féminins, de la rue, des rappeurs. Et il y avait tout un discours sur la paix, l'amour, the peace of power. Et tout ce travail autour des gris, des jaunes et des mauves était vraiment très inspirant. Donc, à partir de toutes ces couleurs que j'ai sorties de mes boîtes, parce que j'ai énormément de boîtes de couleurs dans lesquelles sont classés d'innombrables bleus, d'innombrables verts. Enfin, voilà, c'est tout. Je pense que c'est la moitié de mon bureau qui est donc organisé de cette façon. Il faut donc trouver le bleu de la saison, le rouge de la saison, le brun de la saison. Et après, tout ça va donc m'amener à construire, raconter une histoire.
Okay. Story. Okay. Got my notes done. All right. So this is when, so she begins with some of these questions in mind, like we've seen in the previous slides. And then she says that she always starts working with a white background. So as you can see, all these pieces of fabrics have been laid out on a white background. She's also caught in a web of anxiety 2 or 3 days before she begins, because she feels that she needs to not only renew her color palette, she says that competition is very strong, and so she needs to be able to, compete with all of the other people who are also working on color palettes. And so she needs to have this, right approach where she's doing justice to what is happening as far as trends and things around her. And so it's really a mix of these two things, intuition and inspiration. Here, she was inspired by a catalog by a company called Carhartt. Carhartt is a sportswear company for youth, men, women, rappers, and they do both sportswear and work clothes. And they also speak about in this particular catalog, peace and power. So she found their choice of mauve and gray and pale yellow very interesting. So she took that, and then she delved into the numerous boxes which fill nearly half of her office, where she keeps swatches of color. And so she has, a whole range of blues, a whole range of greens, all of these colors are stocked in her office. And then the whole, the whole point of her work is to try and find the best shade of a blue or the best shade of a brown for that particular season, and to create a story around the entire selection of colors.
Merci. Here it's a color palette I have started for leather. So it's very inspired by animals. Here, birds, dead birds. So I found this picture very interesting for the feathers. And that was the beginning of the reflection I had about the leather. So shall we keep a lot of natural dyes, which are the best way to be correct, I mean, in the society? Or we know to dye leather, it's very difficult and very chemical. So to keep this natural aspect, it's very important. This is the core of the palette. And I added some accent here, very inspired by this picture. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
For the next 3 slides, I'm going to explain you about the French Committee of Color. I used to present this color palette, which was for the leather trend office. And here I used to meet other designers. And it was a very interesting time in the season just to have a confrontation between different desires. So there are most of the designers who are here are more stylist, means are more working for trend offices. There are very few designers, but usually the designers get inspiration in the trend office. Actually, I had the chance to work for trend office and to be also a designer. So that's why I was here.
Let me just explain to everybody that in France, these two professions are very often split into two. So you have on one hand what they call stylists or stylists or colorists. So these are people who work only in trend offices, and their only job is to work on color palettes. So that is the only thing they do. They do not translate it into the final products. Whereas Veronique is quite a special personality, because she's not only a designer, but she's also a colorist. So she does both. She does the colors and she presents them in these committees for color, where they exchange amongst each other, and then they find synergies. They say, oh, okay, everybody's going for a rose or a blue. I'm just going by what Veronique had previously explained to me. I'm sorry, Veronique.
No, it's fine, Fakatika, you're right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's exactly the purpose here. It's interesting to see how people didn't like so much the yellow, and how yellow is so strong now in some garments and also vessels and furnishing designs. So slowly and slowly, there's some colors we didn't like so much before, which has just appeared. It's exactly the same for pink. Pink was a very specific colors. It was more feminine. Actually, it's just used both for masculine and feminine. And it's also especially very interesting to work with another color. When I do some print coloration or jacquards, I really like to have some yellow or pink touch, just to coordinate with something else, because it's just great. And I think some culture, like in India, for example, they just do it It's true, because they don't have all this organization. But if you consider the color for what it is, all colors are interesting. So sometimes you don't like some colors, but just try to look at this color in a different way, and you will just find a new way to use it and to do it better, because it's matching so nicely with something else. So here's the conclusion of this exercise is just to gather different desires and then to check if we agree for some big points. Et au final, une gamme qui est donc un compromis nous a permis en fait de construire ces 4 histoires. Voilà, c'est juste la conclusion d'un exercice de groupe.
Mm-hmm. So this is finally, this is the conclusion of the group exercise or the team, which comes together at the French committee, where they compromise, they kind of come together, they put together this synthesis of their work, and they create 4 different stories, 4 different palettes.
Okay, so according to all these points, I explained to you regarding color and the target of this work. I mean the finality. It's very important to tell a story, because that's really a good way to renew color, to explain something about color. So we are just working in this way. We think to tell stories, it's a really nice way to work color. Example of range. So here I have chosen this color palette, which was about the language of color. The language of color goes through emotion. Working on color is like doing your scales to music. Sound and musicality inspire us to translate a season. Is it possible to hear color? So here we are just in a very specific season, which was summer. And it's a specific color palette. And every 6 months, or maybe more or maybe less, it can be different stories. This is just an example. For musical compositions, je vais continuer en français, Kartika, pour expliquer que c'est un travail d'équipe au sein du CTC, qui est donc le bureau de tendance du cuir. Donc, c'est une gamme qui s'adresse aux tanneurs de France.
Okay, so here she wants to just tell us that this is actually teamwork. These 4 musical compositions were developed with a team within the Office of Trends for Tanners of France. So leather, right? So CTC is the Center for Tanning
Technique of Leather.
Cuir. Cuir is written as CUIR, so that's leather, right?
Yes, CTC. Cuir is leather.
Okay, thank you.
Donc, comme je vous ai expliqué, une construction d'une histoire avec après des sous-histoires, et dans chaque histoire, un marché particulier ou une saison particulière.
Sorry, I got distracted. Could you repeat that, please?
I think I can explain in English, Kartika. I'll try.
Yeah,
yes. Yeah. So here we have 4 iconographies. I've been working on these iconographies with a graphic designer, and they tell about 4 color palettes. But at the end, there's a all-encompassing color palette, which is used for people dyeing skins or leather, but also for stylists who are going to work around shoes and bags and different kind of garments. It's also for different market. So it can be for kids, it can be for menswear, and it can be for women's wear, and it also can be for furnishing design. So that's why we have just to be very serious in the way we build the color palette, because we have to feed all these kind of jobs.
Mhm.
En français, la première histoire, c'est donc une gamme qui est inspirée de l'Afrique du Nord, de toute cette culture orientaliste que les Européens ont peint. Donc, en fait, ce que les Européens ont aimé chez les orientalistes, c'était tout ce savoir-vivre, ces regroupements de femmes, cet aspect extrêmement blanchi par le soleil, une certaine langueur. Et puis, à l'opposé de tous ces symboles ou ces clichés, on a ici un film qui s'appelle Morocco et qui traite aujourd'hui de la nouvelle génération de femmes, de l'émancipation des femmes qui retournent en Afrique du Nord, qui répètent des schémas féminins de la vie des femmes, voilà, qui sont le plaisir de parler, d'être volubile sur un toit, et qui évoque aussi tous les symboles féminins autour du tissu, de la lumière, de la transparence et de la féminité. Donc c'est une gamme féminine, sensuelle, sensible et inspirée de l'Afrique du Nord.
Mhm. I may have missed one or two words, but you can help me with that, Veronique. So this is a palette which is based on North Africa, and starting with the Orientalist paintings done by European painters, which focused on the not only the Oriental or what they imagined as being the Oriental way of life, the Oriental savoir-vivre, you know, the way Oriental way of life. It talks about women getting together, the weathered and bleached colors under the sun, under the strong suns. And then, so that is the painting to the right. And then, okay, volubile, we have to find what the meaning of volubile is. But let me just speak about the painting on the photograph on the left, and then we can talk about the meaning of volubile. And now there is a new movie called Morocco, which is all about the emancipation of women, the pleasure of community, the fact that they are able to, you know, talk. It's also very, very feminine. It's very sensual. It's all about clothing and textiles. I think I missed the different aspects. So you said bleached, gradients of color, and transparent fabrics, right? And femininity.
Yes.
That's the whole story. What was the, Julie was asking, what does volubile mean? So volubile, I think Dominique has told us, is to be chatty. So the whole thing of women coming together and being able to speak together and chat.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Chat, it's a nice name.
Yes. Okay.
Chat
Did
is
I cover that right?
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yes, it's exactly. So here is the color palette at the end of all these inspirations. So importance of this very pale color, which is wisteria. Then we have here this earthenware, which is inspired also by the Mediterranean, which is the sea you can see here. And then you have, of course, the citrus, which are the fruits you can find in North Africa. And then the idea of laundry, which is a really nice color here, which give a specific rhythm to this color palette. And then we have two reds. So that's why I told you which kind of red are we going to work this season. So here, this one is inspired by the manicure. So it's also very feminine. It's like Dior. If you think about Dior, you can think about the red Dior. So manicure, it's very speaking. I don't know if you say that in English, but I mean, in French, we say parlant. So
may I just intervene? So she's talking about the red nails of the manicuring and the fact that it is also strongly associated with Dior. So it really speaks to us, right? The red of Dior, right, Veronique?
yes, exactly. And then to get the last contrast, it's a darker color here inspired by the kilim. And the kilim, you know, it's this kind of carpet which are woven with wool. So when you are close from the animal and from the wool, you consider it's difficult to dye with bright colors. So this is the red we can get, which is really nice to match with this red. So these two reds together are the core of the palette. And here we go like going in the sky, you know, or in the sea or in the florals, which is lighter and lighter. Next one, composition éclectique. Ici, c'est une histoire inspirée de la jeunesse, une histoire inspirée de la mondialisation, inspiration également des nomades. Les mots-clés, donc, we have some keywords which are solar, energetic, road trip, disconnected, experimental, and tender. I did this story a few years ago, but I think today it's still very interesting because, I mean, the young people are just dreaming to live and to work anywhere in the world. So they are all in experimentation, they are connected and disconnected. So that talk about all these kind of figures, but it's also mixing very fruity colors. I mean, it's very soft and it's very bright and solar with this some pinks and yellow and this kind of turquoise.
Okay, so that was pretty much self-explanatory. She just to emphasize, she said that this palette was really inspired by the youth, global, the global context, and also a nomadic context. And then, as she explained, the keywords are all of these: solar, energetic, etc. Then she spoke in English, so hopefully that's clear.
Okay. So finally, this is the color palette. So we can find again all this inspiration of the colors through Aboriginal, smoothie, screen, fluid, adventurer, energy, surfing, and solar. All these names are really important. I'm going to develop it later. But when you work colors for factories, for example, you have some people working in the factory, and if you just explain them, okay, let's try to do a blue or a green or a yellow, it's not enough to describe a color. So to have some poetic inspiration just to describe color, it's something very useful for all the people working later on this color palette. Troisième histoire, une histoire, une composition sourde, qui est donc inspirée ici par une palette très naturelle de gris et également de neutre, de beige, mais également des couleurs brillantes ici, comme ce genre de couleurs un petit peu patinées. On est dans une histoire très raffinée qui peut nous amener vers du luxe, vers aussi une idée du cuir plus luxueuse.
This is a color. This is the third color story that she developed. Sourd in French means deaf, but in this context, I think it would be more like a opaque. I think that in this specific context, we could take it as an maybe meaning more like an opacity. It goes towards very natural tones, grays and neutrals, but also certain brilliant patina. So, maybe like bronze or, those kinds of shiny colors, but with a patina to them. And it's also something that could fit very well in luxury wear leather.
Yes. So here is a palette. Then we find all these names which are the beginning of this inspiration. So this is a beige we call drum. Here we have really a brown color, which is typical from the leather. So inspired by the skin and the percussion. Then goldsmith, gourd, Tuareg, which are these men wearing blue, blue clothes in the desert, earth, felt, and night. And these kind of colors, which are the night and the goldsmiths, are very refined and give this luxury aspect.
Beautiful.
Then the last story, which is called Composition Virtuose. So this is very musical in a way, but it's so interesting just to work color like you can work music in a way. So here it's inspired by this beautiful golden diamond, which is this bird. Amazing. I mean, I think it's difficult to do better when you see things like that in the nature. The same for florals. This is so intense. And it's really a big, the difficulty in our job for colors is then to translate these strong saturated colors when you dye it on a cotton or on a silk or wool or acrylic or polyester or leather. This is another job and it's really hard. This is something really specific, and I thank so many times the people I'm working with, because sometimes you need to do 1, 2, 3 times one color to get the right one. So after that, all the chemical operation is really hard. And here, the nature is just offering us like that. So we just have to pick it. So powerful, flowery, extremes, and unisex. It's a palette. Next slide, sorry. This palette is also very couture. It's very couture and also very interesting to be used by men and women. And all these very strong colors are contrasted here with all this brown inspired by the nature and this green. So there is a right balance to find between the nature and the very eccentric colors, which is a funny game to do in a way. But we have to do it in different times, and it's not coming just like that in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next story here is just to gather the names together and to explain the coherence in naming. It's very important because you can travel and you can tell story through different collections you're going to do with these colors. So these colors can inspire couturiers, can inspire designers, and can inspire stylists. That means you have to find the right coherence in the name, because if you just call this color mauve, or this color blue, or this color yellow, you can't open doors for creation in a way.
Just for everybody, glycine is wisteria.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
No problem. No worries.
So this exercise, I'm used to do it in team with different designers, and it's what I call like a partie de ping-pong, où c'est une gymnastique intellectuelle que j'adore.
So she usually does this with a team, the exercise of naming. I think there was a question about naming, but we can always come back to all the questions. But basically, she does this in a team where it's like a game of ping pong. And it's you know, what she enjoys a lot tremendously. It's kind of intellectual, you know, exercise.
Gymnastic.
Mhm.
Yes, exercise.
Mhm.
Okay, so thank you for this first part. Shall we start the next part, Kartika?
I don't know. I think you may have to go a little bit fast because we are running out of time. It's really up to everybody. I'd like to hear from the audience. Can the audience stay on for a little bit, or shall we just, I'll tell you what, let's just at least answer some of the questions that came in, Veronique, and then we can always go on to part 2, or we can also, you know, resume next weekend. If people want to continue, we can continue today, or we can resume next weekend at no cost to anybody, because I just find that all of what Veronique is telling us is so rich, and we are learning so much that I don't want to, you know, sacrifice any of this. Let's just go to some of the questions, otherwise we, you know, it loses we lose focus also. So Dominique's question is the French Committee of Color meeting once a year or several times? Veronique?
It's twice a year, because we are working in 2 seasons in this kind of jobs. I mean, there's a spring, summer, and then autumn, winter. So it means 2 seasons, so 2 appointments.
Don't know who this is. It's from iPhone. So its color has never looked so beautiful, gorgeous compositions. I'm taking screenshots. Good. And then D says, your names for the colors are wonderful. And that is true. As you explained, it's a whole work. Are the names, Elizabeth's asking, are the names for the colors universally understood in the industry, like Pantone, for example? How does this work, please?
Yes, this is a subject very important. I'm not very comfortable to work with the Pantone or with colors on the computer, because I've been working with people so precise, you know, in the luxury development, that when I work for some polyester or cotton or silk or wool, I just need to have a swatch in my hand just to understand better the finality of the color we are choosing. If it's paper, it looks bright or it looks white. Do you know what I mean? The material is confusing for me. So the closer I can get from the finality of the material, and the way I can communicate with the people who are going to dye the fabric in the factory, it's very crucial for us. So that's why I don't use so much Pantone, but for some kind of jobs, this is a very useful color palette. I'm not used because it's very small pieces, so I think it's not, I mean, you can be as precise and as with some swatches. That's my opinion.
Yes, I agree with you that Pantone, I do use Pantone because I have, I get ideas for names, but I think that the fact that you work in a team is really enriching, because then you can bounce off ideas about how a specific word could express color much better, right? So, yeah.
J'ai une petite anecdote, Kartika, que je peux peut-être expliquer en français. Quand j'ai travaillé chez Kenzo, j'étais très stressée parce que j'ai beaucoup travaillé la couleur avec le couturier. Et à la fin, quand on avait décidé une couleur, il fallait couper plein de petits morceaux pour différents fabricants. Et si on perd la couleur, c'est la catastrophe. Donc, c'est quelque chose de très stressant.
Okay, so Veronique is explaining about an anecdote when she was working with the couturier Kenzo. They worked for a very long time to come up with one color, and then they had to cut that one color up into several pieces to be able to distribute that color swatch to a whole range of people. And she says that it was a very stressful moment for her, because if you miss out on that one color or you lose that color, then you lose a lot of work. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Shall we? Okay, let me just go ahead with the other comments and questions. Judy says your work is the ultimate in creativity. Okay, so we'll go ahead with time. Let's keep going. A couple of people are saying. So then, yes, and we will, and if for those who cannot stay longer, that's another option. Yes, what we will do is we will continue, and then we will make the recording available, if that's okay with you, Veronique. I could share the recording with everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
It means, shall we go further now today?
Yes.
Okay. So next part is the meaning of this work. The meaning of color means like a designer, we have to think about the finality of a color palette, of course. We are not just doing nice colors just to do nice colors like that. It's not free. And the application, it's according to which kind of market. I told you a little bit before, but is it for kids market? Is it for menswear? Is it for women's wear? Is it for garment? Is it for the textile before the garment? Is it for leather? Is it for accessories? Is it for shoes? And it can be also for all this together, because if you work in a trend office, it has to answer to all this kind of market. That's why to have a big encompassing color palette, sometimes it's very difficult to use for designers after that. And to keep the identity of a brand or the identity of a range, it can be inspiring just to have a look to a big color palette, but then you have to rework these colors just to create a very personal identity. So that's the first point. You have to think also about the material, of course. So which kind of target is it? Is it wool? Is it silk? Is it plastic? Is it leather? Is it any kind of different fabrics which are sometimes difficult to dye or not difficult to dye? So that's why I think it's something very close from the discussion we had about the Pantone and the colors on the screen. And the third point is also again about the medium. So is it going to be Pantone? Is it going to be paper? So this is another answer, but that was the questions I wanted to write before in this Zoom event. I think we answered to this all these points. So let's go further now. Rapidement, j'aimerais ici vous parler un peu de l'identité des couleurs, qui me semble important. Quand on travaille la couleur en tant que designer, il est important d'avoir une culture de la couleur. Par exemple, j'ai choisi cette femme et ses rayures en maillot de bain qui sont typiques des années 60. Voilà, ce sont les années après-guerre. C'est le début de l'électroménager, c'est le féminisme, c'est voilà, la vie après la guerre qui prend des couleurs. Et toutes ces couleurs évoquent vraiment une époque qui était assez culturellement identifiable.
Okay, so here she says that when one works color, so it's very interesting to see how Veronique works her color and just doesn't take it for granted. And so as a designer, she says that it is very important for one to have a culture related to color, and so to be able to imbibe cultural aspects and then use that. So here she's talking about a poster, which is a typical 60s poster after the war, when electrical gadgets became common, and also feminism was on the rise. So it's very easily identifiable in terms of color and
thank you. Here it's exactly the same thought. It's about the 70s. It's probably a wool coat. So it's really bound for me and for a lot of people, of course. It's bound to freedom, to peace, because it's also against the war, in Indochine. Voilà, c'est
Indochina.
Indochina, okay. Thank you. And it's back to the roots, it's back to the nature, it's back to the natural dyes. So here there's also hippies inspiration, which is interesting. And if you go also in the time before, I mean, in the back, it's interesting to explore or even to read books about the story of the green in Lacoste or the orange in Hermes, and also the red for Dior or the blue for Lanvin. You can just have some very interesting writings on the computer, in some books, about one color, one monocolor, which, how can you say, brands appropriate one color, and that's also something very specific we found in all the industry story. But of course, we are allowed to use this color in a way. But it's interesting when we speak about color, and especially when you create fabrics for brands like Hermes, Dior, and Vuitton, you know that's a specific orange, which is Hermes orange. So it's like that. Just we have to be careful, and we just have to use it in a specific way. But so that's part of the culture and the knowledge of the color. Alors ici, c'est un défilé de Jacquemus. Je voulais aussi expliquer que l'inspiration vient beaucoup de la mode. Regarder un défilé, c'est toujours intéressant pour comprendre la construction de la couleur. Jacquemus est un jeune designer qui est devenu voilà, très apprécié sur la planète. Il est originaire du sud de la France. Donc ici, il travaille beaucoup les codes de la couleur, spécialement du jaune sur cette collection qui fait référence à Van Gogh et au tournesol. Également l'association des champs de lavande. Et puis cet accent rose avec ce tapis rose qui vient en fait coordonner tout son défilé. Voilà, donc c'est très intéressant de voir l'inspiration d'une région dans le monde, d'une culture propre, et puis des références culturelles à des artistes et à certaines couleurs.
Okay, so this is a défilé, so it's a fashion show by Jacquemus, who is a young designer from the south of France, very much appreciated around the globe. And it is inspired by, and so what she, sorry, so I'm going to go backtracking. So Veronique is inspired by fashion because it also shows her how couturiers construct palettes around color. And so Jacquemus has worked on aspects which are one, Van Gogh and the sunflowers that he paints, lavender fields, and then he's used rose as an accent, but also ties the whole of his fashion show together with the rose pink carpet and rose accents. So what is really interesting is this whole, the entire story that he has created, the cultural references, and the way he has used color.
Thank you. La couleur, c'est également présenter des fils. Pour les industriels, c'est une étape très importante. Ici, j'ai choisi une présentation qui est un petit peu ancienne. Je pense qu'elle date des années 60. C'était avant l'avènement du design et des bureaux de tendance. Les industriels avaient une façon extrêmement concise, pragmatique, primaire, de présenter la couleur qui n'est pas inintéressante. Mais c'est vrai que cet aspect des rouges, des oranges, des bleus présentés ici en camailleux, et puis des couleurs un peu acidulées, puis pastel, puis neutre, sont une classification assez élémentaire de la couleur qu'on retrouve plus beaucoup aujourd'hui. Aujourd'hui, on raconte plus des histoires pour emmener les designers ou les stylistes vers une inspiration et un processus de création. Ici, c'est juste organisé de manière méthodique.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a rather dated example, but she feels that it is an important example in its simplicity and the methodic approach taken by industrials before the advent of trend offices and design houses. They had a very methodical and simple way of presenting color ranges in the form of thread. It's probably dating from the 60s, and they present, for example, the first range of colors is what we call a camailleux. So a camailleux is analogous colors which are all belonging to one hue, but different shades and different colors from that hue. Then she has, they have a range of colors which are acid. One could call them acid. It's a way of expressing the way the color is, what can I say, bright, I guess. And then you have the pastel range, which you see on the right, and then it is followed by the neutrals. So it's very methodical, right? It goes from the camailleux, which is the analogous colors. Then we have the acidic colors, which are more on the bright side. Then we have the pastels, and then we have the neutrals. And we seldom see this today. Today, most of the stories, most of the color stories are constructed mainly to inspire designers. And so Veronique likes to go back to this very methodical way of expressing color.
In a way, this kind of presentation is very charming. So it's also a pleasure just to keep these archives to work. Here is the presentation of the plain fabrics, which are dyed in a factory in France, which is called Guigou. Guigou is doing some jersey knitting, circular jersey, and it's a very, very expensive jersey, which started with Courrèges and Cardin. Monsieur Courrèges was the first buyer of this kind of jersey in France. The problem when you work with this kind of high-level fabrics is that you work with some customers who are very capricious. So it's really difficult sometimes to match with exactly the red they want, or the pink they want, or the white they want. So sometimes also it's difficult to dye because it's raining, or technically it's more difficult to have this kind of red or pink or green. So it means the stock is increasing in the factories, and that's the biggest problem because it's very expensive to keep fabrics on the shelves. Is that correct in English?
Yes. Inventory. They have larger and larger inventories in order to assure stock in very specific colors, because customers are so capricious about the exact tint that they want.
Yes. So what the factories have to do is to sell all this surplus of fabrics or these plus fabrics they have on the shelves. So it can be first choice, it can be second choice and third choice, but all the time there are still nice fabrics. So the idea is to present it in a nice way and to have a very mathematic organization just to work about this stock. Another aspect of my work, according to color, is to make the fabrics and the jacquard nice, beautiful, and sometimes it's quite hard because we have to reduce the yarns in the factories, because before the designers used to have a lot of colors in a factory, and after some time they asked me to reduce, and after 40 colors, for example, for cotton, I had to choose 10 colors. So it means for several years I have to reduce and reduce and reduce. But at the end it's interesting, because when you think about the color, you just play with harmonies like blue and white and red and white, and then this camailleux of red and white, and it's still very fresh and graphic. So with less you can do a lot, and with less you can do something very modern. And if you understand the technique and if you just work with the people in the factory, you just get beautiful things and beautiful fabrics. So here it's a specific jersey, which is an embossed jersey, bicolor or tricolor, which was liked and bought by Coperny. Coperny is a couple of two designers very famous today because they did a special show during the last fashion week. They create a dress during the event, you know, with the bombs, with a special bomb. So they like techniques, they like new ways to create. So they're looking for technical aspect and a very modern creativity. And because of this work, this fabric was exposed in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris. So we were very proud in Gigout to have this fabric in this museum and working with these young designers, because it's a pleasure all the time to share and to work with young designers, because they are very creative, and that's the best part of my work, of course.
Mm-hmm. When Veronique calls it a bomb, she means a spray, right, Veronique? So the Coperny was tweeted and shared all over social media recently, because they had this very svelte model who I think it was, what's her name? She's really beautiful and she has this perfect body, and they sprayed a material onto her, and then that sprayed material became a dress. So you can look for Coperny and you will find Coperny. And so bravo, Veronique, for this.
But the point which is interesting also to work with these young designers is they are so used to iconographies, you know, on the phone. They are seeing so many pictures. If you present them something which is very built and very simple, I think it's more clear for them to appreciate a collection or a color range. If you have too many swatches, if you have too many colors, you are just lost. Mm-hmm. So I think to have this concentration, it's a hard exercise, but at the end, it's much more interesting. Mm-hmm. So color also for textile designer is very important, just to work different kind of swatches. So here it's a color palette around 4 colors with some medium colors and a dark one here with this purple. The technique here is print and burnout, dévoré on silk. So the combination of these stripes printed on the dots, and then this dyeing is something which is quite difficult to work, because it's in two times. It's not something you do on a computer, just like drawing and having the result at the minute. It's something you have to print first and then to dye the second time. So sometimes you work things, you don't see the result directly. You need to wait sometimes just to get the right fabrics in the hand. Here it's exactly the same process. It's a jacquard. It's a jacquard with 4 colors, so it's a viscose knit. And if you try to work this kind of combination on the computer, you don't have time all the time. So it means you have to cross the yarns in your head. You need to cross the colors in your head. And if you respect the dark and the light, then you can progress in different kind of coloration. But you can also play with the balance which are different. So you can have a very light background, you can have a bright background, you can have a dark background. But all these combinations, it's interesting just to have an exercise in the head. So it's very abstract. And this is the way we can play with a palette. And if the balance of the palette is well built, then you have a lot of possibilities to develop this kind of range. When you work colors like a designer, it can be also interesting just to see how you, the couturier, are going to use it. Here they use the swatches you have seen before in the slide for this combination here, for this silhouette. So it was a very nice... Enfin, je vais peut-être parler en français, ce sera plus facile qu'Artica. C'est la coloration du designer textile peut aussi, it can fit directly, ça peut directement s'accorder à la construction de la couleur du couturier. Et c'est là aussi où c'est un exercice très intéressant.
Yeah, so the colorways developed by a textile designer before the fabrics reach a couturier. It's what is really interesting for Veronique is that sometimes those colorways that she develops fits exactly into the couturier's, collection and palette as well. So here, for example, for Marnie, her knitwear yardage of fabrics fitted right into his collection.
Merci. Another aspect of the color trends or the colors is the harmonies. So here is a sample of harmonies from a book of a trend office, which is called Péclair's Paris. So this is a tool very precious for the designers or couturier or brands, just to try to use the colors together and to think about the different combinations. Here, for example, you have a bright and a mauve black duo. Here you have a trio, which is more couture. Here you have some spicy colors contrasted with the black. And also this kind of duo. This is an exercise we do when we are textile designer, of course, because we are used to cross the yarns and to weave and to knit. But in this kind of trends cahier, in this trend book, sorry, these are just harmonies which can be very useful for different kind of designers. Can be also for furnishing, for vessels. Okay, and the last slide, just before the conclusion, is just to explain there is an exercise which is quite interesting, but not easy all the time. It's just the duo. Duo, it's something we are used to do like textile designer. It tells story again. For example, this white and black, it's very common, but it's also very chic. It's something we find in, for example, Chanel. This association of blue, dark blue and dark brown is something very Japanese, which happens in the 80s, I remember, and it's something really refined. It can be also very masculine. And after, it can be used today for different kind of use, of course. It can be for sportswear, it can be for any kind of use. What's interesting also is to mix together the warm and the cold colors. Here, very warm colors, which is something very solar. the purple and the violet together. And if we think about the natural, this is a way also to play with the greens and the browns and the edge is very, la bordure est très, la frontière est très délicate et très intéressante à travailler.
That's complex. So she's speaking about the greens, and she says that the frontiers is a kind of a, something which is edgy, which can get edgy in terms of color combinations and can also be difficult to work, right? Challenging to work.
Okay, so I think I have finished.
Thank you, Veronique.
Thank you very much for listening to all this. It's possible to speak more, but I think I'm going to stop. That's just something I would like to say to conclude, to finish this presentation. There is a sentence from Joseph Albert, which is very interesting. Keep in mind, color is coming before the shape. So that's the first point. The second point, when you go somewhere, maybe for shopping or maybe for any kind of things, the first thing you see is the color. So if you see something interesting, maybe in a shop, you're going to enter because you saw a nice color, and maybe you're going to buy something black or blue, but the color is what you see first. And maybe this is a key point of our job, because it's seduction. It's something which is also very interesting today in the care design, because we have understood it's very useful also for the mind and the health. So hospitals, architecture, a lot of kind of jobs are just thinking about color in a new way, and that's very positive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bravo.
Thank you, Kartika. Thank you for this opportunity to explain and to speak about color.
Thank you. That was so generous of you to share so much of your methods of working and thought process that goes behind how you work. Just a couple comments. I'd like to just read that to you. There's lots of thanks from everybody. Thank you. Judy is asking if you have consulted with paint companies in France. And she says, I know they use color palettes and announce the color of the season of or year. That's very much an American thing, I think, Judy. I don't know in France if they have any paint companies that say color of the year. The Pantone does, right? I don't know if Pantone is very important in France.
Yes, it is. Yes, in all the couturier office, you have Pantones. Yes, sure. It's also something very common and expensive, but very important to have.
Okay, but you have not worked with paint companies, right?
Not really, not with paint company, but is it?
C'est les sociétés qui fabriquent la peinture pour les murs.
No, no. I've not worked with these people, no.
Yeah. Julie is asking, how do you organize your boxes of swatches? By color and fabric or other?
By color.
Yeah, by
yes.
color.
Pink, yellow, green. I think I have 4 boxes for greens. The color I like.
You have, are they like transparent boxes?
Yes, they're transparent from Muji. Do you know Muji?
Yes, Muji.
You know Muji shop.
Yes.
Do you want to see it?
Yes. Why don't you show us?
I can show you one box.
Okay. You can stop share and then we can. If you, okay, there you go.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have a lot of this, so it's a big mess at the end of the day or at the end of the week. But yes, I'm very lucky. I have a lot of swatches.
Nice. So this is something that you have collected over the years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so lots of thanks, and I think that we have addressed most of the questions. I am going to send everybody the link to the recording. There is a student who wants to know, curious to know, what do color specialists and trendsetters study? I guess this is what they study, right? What you were saying, what is happening around them, and then they come together.
Sorry. I'm
And
not sure understand, and I understood the question. Kartika, can you repeat, please?
I think that the student wanted to know how color specialists and people who set trends, what do they study? I think that
which kind of school? Is she asking which kind of studies?
No. Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe. I have to ask her. This is one of my students. I can check with her and I can get back to you. Let me ask her. She's left, unfortunately.
But usually there's some color courses in all the applied art courses. It means if you study architecture or textile design or industrial design, you need courses around color.
Yes.
Yes.
And then one last question from Dominique, who is also probably left by now, but I'll just ask for the sake of her. She says, why do you say sourd? It's true, you have one color story, which is about the sourd palette, which is the deaf or opaque palette, when you're relating it to percussion, luxury, gold, all very refined. So it's a little contrasting, right? You're saying on one hand it's sourd, and then you're talking about percussion.
Sourd.
Sourde. Donc, d'un côté, sourde, et de l'autre côté, tu parles de percussion. Donc, c'est un peu...
La percussion, c'est parce que c'est un son sourd sur une peau naturelle.
Ah, okay. So she's explaining that percussion is a sound which is I have to figure out this expression sourd a little bit better, but the percussion is the sound of a beat against a leather instrument. Yes. So it is
really, yes, exactly. This is the skin of the animal. So you play music on the skin. So it's a sound which is very soul. Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of deep, I think. I guess that's how one could put it. Yeah.
I think it's like inside the body. Do you know? There are some sounds you can feel inside, which are, I think, different. Don't know what's your opinion about that, but I think the way you feel color, it's like sounds. So sounds are very aggressive or from outside, and some are inside, I think.
Ah, yes. I see what you mean. Yes.
Yes.
Would you like to stop share, Veronique? Then we can all be on the same screen.
Okay. So shall I remove the screen now?
Yeah, tu appuies sur arrêter le partage.
Nouveau partage, okay.
I invite all of you to ask questions freely. We are just a small committee left.
Is that okay for the screen? Can you see me, Kartika?
Yes.
Everybody see? Yes.
And you can unmute yourselves and just chat if you like. Ça va, Véronique? Tu n'es pas trop fatiguée?
Non, ça va. J'espère que c'était pas trop long.
Non, pas du tout. Tout le monde a beaucoup apprécié. Je te passerai. I'm saying to Veronique, because Veronique is saying, I hope it was not too long. I was asking if she was not too tired. But I think everybody appreciated this very much. I'm going to send along all the chat comments as well as soon as the presentation is over. So please go ahead, chat with Veronique freely, unmute yourselves. Just, think that you're in a room.
Just to pick up on the sound, I think in English you would probably say a dull sound on natural
Dull.
skin, you know,
Yes.
as opposed to the bright resonance of a wind
Yes.
instrument.
Yeah. Thank you, Dominique. There you
Thank
got
you.
it.
And I'm back.
I'm glad you're back.
It's not easy to describe in English the color
No,
as a
yeah,
French designer.
that's right. It's very hard. Yes.
I think you did a marvelous job, though.
Yeah, that
Thank
was
you.
wonderful.
It was so interesting. Please go ahead, everybody.
Oh, thank you so much, Veronique. This is Julie Valancourt of Ionku.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, I really enjoyed your presentation. I have learned so much, and I many years ago took a color class, and I weave Navajo weaving. So I do.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm just starting a new piece, and I'm still a beginner, but I'm thinking about so much of what you said and applying it to the color choices I choose as I continue with new pieces. So anyway, but that wasn't the point of my question. I put a question in the chat, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about the French Committee for Color. What is the purpose of the committee? Is it a private or public? This was the first I had heard of this committee. Thank you.
Actually, it's private, so it means you have to pay. Yes, this is like a private group. It's not private. I mean, it's open. If you want to gather this group, it's possible, but you have to pay something. After that, the color trends, it's something which appeared with the trend offices, you know, in the 60s. So this was the time where the capitalism and all this new collection was very developed. I mean, we know the story about all this. So actually we have a lot of questions about this way to produce and to design things. But according to this job, to create colors every 6 months, after sometimes you just feel the same colors, you feel this, you have some feelings for some colors, and it's very important to renew, to gather ideas, and to meet other people and other designers. That's why it was a very good idea just to have a global vision of the color.
I see. Thank you.
Ça permet de, je vais parler en français aussi, ça permet aussi de légitimer des grands bureaux et des grands salons comme Première Vision. Donc ça permet de rassurer les designers.
You know, the fact that these large what are those bureaus? Is a bureau de tendance is like trend offices. So these large trend offices and trade fairs like Premier Vision in France, these are spaces or, you know, events where they talk and discuss color, and it not only kind of, you know, legitimizes their presence in the industry, but also helps everybody to reassure themselves of the color choices for the season. Anybody else or anything else? Vas-y, Véronique, continue si tu veux.
Après, je voudrais juste expliquer qu'il n'y a pas de certitude et il n'y a pas des prévisions exactes parce que ce n'est pas possible. C'est juste un métier qui fait appel à de l'intuition et à une rigueur. Et donc, derrière l'application, ce sont ouvrir des portes pour créer des produits dans le domaine des arts appliqués.
Yeah, so she says that, you know, there is no certitude as far as color is concerned. Like, you know, they can predict, they can sort of predict or set some trends, but there is no certitude that it will be accepted by the rest of the world. It's just a question of trying to be attentive to what is happening around and having a certain rigor in that. And then that helps various creative industries around or creative people around. Did I cover everything you said, Veronique?
Yes, it's right, Kartika. And the second point is also today it's very important to have a personal, not only a personal, but an identity in your creation. So there are trends, but there's also your work. So if you are a weaver, of course, just feel your intuition and do what you like. That's more important. That's very important. Yes. Yeah. I mean,
Veronique's message to you is, go with your intuition if you are a weaver. Anybody else? D? All good?
This was just a wonderful presentation. I'm so inspired.
Rafika, are you still coming to France?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Sorry,
when I started to work for Gigou company, which is this factory doing some circular knitting, circular jersey. Before to start to work with them, they asked me, "Do you like cooking?" and that's so French, that's so Lyonnais, because la soirée lyonnaise, it's also cooking. And I really think cooking and working colors, it's very similar. When I met Kartika again after a long time, I was so happy just to share cooking with her. And for me, color, I have some souvenir of teams which were just wonderful because it's just sharing. And I think that's the part of my job I really like. And also I like to transmit and to work with some students or young designers because this is great. And it's so hard for the young designers today to choose because they have so many inspirations. And I have the experience, so there's intuition, but the experience and how to reduce, how to choose, that's a part of my job today, which is very interesting, I think, to make choice.
It's like what I think, if I can go forward with that, is like what Veronique is saying is that today, the youngsters are bombarded with so many, things that inspire them. And Veronique feels that with experience comes the ability to pare down and to distill and to get the essence of, what is important. So, yeah, I think that she has really good experience in that. And yes, we did do a lot of cuisine, and Lyon in it's southwest of France, not very much south, right? Center west of France.
A little bit east, because you're quite close from Italy.
East, yes, not west, east.
Yes.
And so Lyon, with its silk industries, is very, very important in terms of textile creation, woven textiles, knitted textiles. So Veronique has had this wonderful opportunity to work with many Lyonnese, companies, especially Gigou, who she shared with us. And so the Lyonnese are also very well known for their cuisine, the French cuisine.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Capitale gastronomique.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so
good.
What's interesting also when you work colors is after that you have a new eye, just to see a movie, just to walk in the street, just to look the life. But this is just wonderful.
When you're starting to observe color around you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments? Sejal, Galila, Lynn, Elizabeth, Stephanie? Okay. Maybe we'll call it a day then. And Devon, hopefully we will make contact. Devon is also in France.
I would love to meet up with both of you.
Okay, wonderful.
We can have lunch.
We'll have lunch with Leonie's food, if possible.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Thank you very much for listening to
Well,
this.
it was nice to put a face and a voice because we were in touch by email. So now I feel I know you a bit better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
À bientôt.
À bientôt.
Bonne soirée.
Bonne soirée, merci.
So, okay, thanks everybody.
Thank
And
you. Thank you
again.
very much.
Yeah, thank you, Veronique. That
you,
was
Kartika.
terrific. C'était vraiment, vraiment intéressant.
Je suis contente. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to explain you what I like to work the most, which is color. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.